I truly, from the deepest bottom of my heart, and I'm going to go ahead and speak for Miss Batavia, her heart too. We hope that you have not had your first frost. We have not had ours yet, and we're holding on strong. And that's why we are here today to give you all a garden update for November. What is going on in our gardens this month? Right here on the Backyard Gardens podcast.
To have a good harvest, one must plant good seeds and must also use the right kind of fertilizer. The carrots have grown large and firm. How good they will taste.
Welcome to the Backyard Gardens podcast, where we talk about all things gardening and give the information out for you to be successful in your garden, whether it's your first or your last. We are your hosts, Ben, the backyard gardener, and
Batavia, the front yard gardener.
one in the country,
One in the city.
Now get ready as we dig deep into this wonderful world of gardening as we learn to grow and grow for change. So I was a little dramatic, and I'm not going to have a frost. I'm not even going to be close, but I know that I speak for you and that you are in any day type situation. So
Yeah, by the time this airs, my first average frost should have already passed October the 29th. But my 14-day forecast says that's a lie.
14 days is a long time to forecast.
It is, but I've been watching this 14-day forecast, and I've been watching it for like 14 days, right? And it's I'm feeling good, man.
Well, I mean, hell, you remember the TV Guide back in the day?
Yeah, of course.
They couldn't even forecast the TV shows 14 days out. So, and that's supposed to be a schedule.
Yeah.
But,
so we have 30s. So a lot of 50s as a low, some 40s. And once you get down to the 30s, even in like 38, 39, you and I both know that it could, especially with a 14-day forecast, that thing can shift downward. And there we are with some frost. So. And
it also depends on the microclimate around your garden.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh.
There it is.
So I was, I'm getting my weekends mixed up. Yeah, like maybe within the last week, let's just call it that. So I was pulling up some plants in a container, in a grow bag. And, I was fluffing up the soil or whatever. And it was like freezing, like so much so where my fingertips were cold. Now, this is also the same person that is basically doing laps around the garden to try to keep warm, because once that cold catches me,
It's done. Are you wearing socks yet?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
And I'm not happy about it, but I'm dedicated, so. You
were pretty late in the year last year, so it's official, everybody. The Batavia sock watch is on. We're all watching Batavia's feet to see what's going on. That's how we know. It's weird, but we do it. That's what we do.
Yeah,
here.
well, I mean, this is life, right? Everything doesn't make sense.
Yeah. All right, so let's go to our question of the day. And this is a very special question from a very special person. They listen to the podcast and watch us on YouTube. So, look, that was a resounding bell. I like it. I'm sure some people's ears are bleeding right now, but that's okay.
I can't even hear out of my left ear now, but that's okay.
So this was on a short that I did, and basically I just came on and I was like, hey, what are you guys planting in your garden next year? I'm planning to do X, Y, and Z. Let me know. And they wrote, so I never grew kohlrabi, and I have no idea how it tastes. I think from listening to your podcast, I can plant in the spring. I'm also looking to bump up on medicinal plants. And in my video, I was like, look, I did corn, didn't do so well. I'm going to do it again next year, give it a shot. Mm-hmm. And this individual says, my corn did okay, but I know I can do better for next year. So.
Wait, hold on. Read that last part again.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You're just that much of a sucker, huh?
My corn didn't do so well.
My corn did okay, but I know what I can do better for next year. Ugh. So this individual has like the wherewithal to just, they want to grow some corn, and you know what? I support you in that.
I'm writing this down. I know I can do better. I don't know what the person wrote, but I'm hearing it as I know I can do better next year. And that is like, put it on a t-shirt, right? Such an awesome spirit to have. I actually need that to be one of my post-it mantras for these next couple of weeks as I try to power through.
Yeah. Is it that bad?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Well, hold on. Wait. Let's not gloss over the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to get to it.
We're already into the update. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we've glossed over it just talking about the corn. It ain't even about the corn.
Hey, we know you can do better next year too, all right? We're with you.
We can all do better. But kohlrabi, have you had kohlrabi?
I have not.
Okay, so first of all, that's an issue. Because it's not because you didn't grow it yet, but it's because you can't get in the grocery store really, which is a shame.
Mm-hmm. Which is one of my favorite things. One of my many favorite things about having a garden. I have kohlrabi in my garden right now.
Yeah,
I've just
me
not
too.
gotten into the kitchen.
Well, kohlrabi. So the question was, what does kohlrabi taste like? It's very simple and complex all in the same time. It tastes like a turnip with a slight cabbage flavor. I'm gonna let that sit for a minute. Yeah, it's kind of confusing, right? Yeah, it's a turnip with a slight cabbage flavor. So basically, I want to do, you should grow this for kohlrabi in the near future because it's become one of my favorite, and I fought for 2 years to grow it. There's a lot of trial and error for me, but I'm getting it. I harvested. I ate it last night, which if you stay tuned to the end, there will be a recipe that includes kohlrabi. It just happened to be that way. I guess the stars are aligned. So it does grow well in the fall and the spring. It doesn't do well in the heat, so remember that. And I think that if it gets hot and it grows, that it won't produce the bulb, whatever. I don't know what we call it. I mean, it's like a weird, like hybrid thing. Like,
yeah, it's like a root that's on top of the soil, right?
Yeah, without roots coming out of it, though. So I consider it a root crop. What do you consider it as?
That's wild. So, I just did a video and I was doing, talking about, I plan on harvesting roots, right? Like I have some radishes, some carrots, some parsnips, right? And I actually was showing the kohlrabi plant that I have that's long past the point of I should have harvested it weeks ago. But I literally said, I'm just going to pretend like this is a root and harvest it when I harvest all of my roots. So somehow, some way, your brain combined with my brain and we had the same thought on 2 different days.
That's okay.
It's a beautiful thing, man.
It happens a lot, actually.
So just a quick note, and we're not going to give all the you should grow this away for kohlrabi, but I have at this point 2 wildly different size kohlrabi plants. And I'm very interested to see one's like the size of a baseball, which is more ideal for harvesting, and one's like the size of a softball. Which is a bit overgrown, but I'm curious to see how different the taste will be. So I'm going to prepare them in the same way, maybe using the recipe
on the same night.
Yeah, same night or morning, depending on how I feel. So maybe I'll use your recipe that you shared later on. We'll see.
I doubt you will for that, but that's okay.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it's not, no. So it wouldn't be good for a taste test comparison. Why you got to roll your eyes and shake your head at me for? That's not fair.
I was very intentional on you seeing that I was rolling my eyes. I wanted you to know.
I know you were because you opened your eyes even bigger and tilted. There, you did it again.
I have a baseball cap on, so I wanted to make sure that there wasn't a glare or something that was preventing you from seeing that. So I know you're probably right because clearly you know what the recipe is, but there's a part of me that's just like, how are you going to tell me what I'm not going to do?
For a taste test, it wouldn't be good, but you never know.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's really easy. Grow it and enjoy it. Just remember that when you cook it, it's going to be a little bit more watery than a turnip. So turnips are watery than potatoes, more watery than potatoes, and kohlrabi is more watery than turnips. So just kind of keep that in mind. Yeah. And I guess that's where that cabbage flavor comes in at.
You're dropping some nuggets here, man. I'm digging it.
Hey, look. I grow to eat too. So I know what I'm growing, how to cook it. And I learned when we made it mashed one time and it was like squirting through our teeth. And I was like, yeah, this is kind of gross.
That was the turnips that you guys mashed?
It was, both times we did it. And I'm like, it's good, but the consistency is not happening. Like, this is not going to work. So,
yeah.
But that being said, we're going to go take this break. This is an easy question today. And we're going to come back with a garden update. And who the hell knows what's going on in our garden? Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out the Backyard Gardens podcast.
If you like what we're doing and you want to continue to support the podcast, head over to our Patreon page to sign up.
You can also make a one-time donation using PayPal. Both of these links are in the description.
With your support, we can continue growing and helping others in their gardens. See ya.
One of the most common questions we get asked is, what do we use in our gardens as far as products? Well, we have an Amazon list below that if you go to, you can see all of the products that we use and like and recommend, and you can buy them. And if you do, you support the podcast at no extra cost to you. So check out the link below for our Amazon store and help support the podcast and enjoy your gardens. Tell me that everything good is going on in your garden.
Everything's good in my garden.
Everything's good.
I mean, that's the truth of the matter.
You're harvesting daily, hundreds of pounds of food.
No, I'm using my garden as like outdoor food storage at this point.
No, that's, you know what? Oh, wait. So first of all, that's awesome because I like that. I like that idea. And second of all, I forgot to make two announcements earlier. One is the t-shirt code Jolly BYG, 10% off. And two, I added 2 t-shirts, a his and a hers, and they're hand-drawn mandalas by me on t-shirts. So I get to a point in my garden where I store it, but it takes a while to get there. And I'm surprised with as long as you have before your frost that you're already there.
Yeah.
You must be staying cool in the daytime.
Spot on.
So I haven't been creeping on your weather too much. So just to say that I haven't been creeping on you. So I don't really have any idea what your weather is like. I know you just had a bunch of rain, but that's it.
Yeah. It's okay if you've been monitoring my weather, because a good friend and a good garden pal probably would, because I'm starting to get reckless out here.
Are you?
Yeah, man. Like, so weather for us, kind of October normally is, it could go either way. Like, we really get cooler temps, but I told you September has been unseasonably warm. October had been as well. We're now officially in fall. Our highs are in the 50s. Our lows are consistently overnight and in the 40s. We've had maybe 1 or 2 days that have dipped into like 39 or something. But what that's done for me in my garden, because clearly I have a bunch of things that are like true fall vegetables, a lot of leafy greens, brassicas and things, and they're unfazed, right? They're doing just fine. But some of my remaining summer crops, I still got summer out there, right? So tomatoes and peppers, they're basically kind of stalled, right? So it's too cool for them to really produce new fruit. And it's so cool where, once we get to 50s, especially for tomatoes, those things really stop ripening, right? Yeah. So I looked back into, and I was actually monitoring it in my head. And there's a lot of stuff, buzzing around up there. October 1, I looked and I had a bunch of green paste tomatoes. And it took until like October 20th. And they had been green for a good minute. So it took until like October 20th for those to actually get to the point where they were showing color. And so I know that's a whole big question at the beginning of the season, like, when are my tomatoes going to turn red? This ain't that. This was like cooler temps basically had stalled these things out. We got a couple of warmer days and here we are. So that's what's allowing me to kind of be lazy and leave things on the plant. But it's already backfired. That's why I said I'm being reckless. And let me take a breath, because that was a lot there.
So I want to say that every year I pull everything out except for my peppers. I usually leave a pepper or two, and they continue to produce up until about now, and then they just stall. But my jalapenos, I probably have 30 or 40 jalapenos that have just been sitting on there for about a month now, and all summer they were really slow, but every single year at the end of summer they take off, and it's extremely frustrating because I'm like, I'm out at this point, I'm out of my preservation mode and all that stuff, and now I've got all these peppers. I'm like, damn. So I'm kind of leaving them out there as long as I can, and then I'm going to pull them in. But every year it's the same story with them. It's crazy.
Yeah, peppers have. I've actually had like, oh, we got a frost last night and still had some peppers in the garden, and they were okay, but I didn't chance it much further, you know, so I ended up pulling those up. I think what I ended up doing actually was cutting the entire plant, putting it into like an empty container, that big container I had, because I still wasn't ready to manage them. And ultimately, that was last year, I think. I ultimately brought it was like a 20-gallon container, brought it inside and harvested the peppers off of it. But I said that I was being reckless because, like you said, we had 24 hours of nonstop rain. We got at least 5 inches. So that's as high as my little rain gauge goes. So it could have been more. And I had red tomatoes, the same tomatoes I'm talking about that took all that time to start to get to color. And I don't know, if I had like a dozen, maybe 3 or 4 of them split.
That's it.
Yep. You
That's
know,
all
what are you
she
going to
wrote.
do?
Yeah. I need, first of all, I need to get a rain gauge, but I need a rain gauge bad actually, but I also need the rain that you got. We haven't had rain here in like almost 2 months. Not anything measurable. I
paused because we have one more like couple of days in a row of rain, and I'm not sure what that's going to look like. But I mean, the saturation, you know. Ugh.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's I was definitely having issues in my garden with my chard because I was watering a lot. And as I watered, like I was watering a lot because I had stuff like that was getting established, and I would reseed and I would have stuff in seeds, and my chard was just getting overwatered, and it's been on like the struggle bus for a minute, and it's been like flopping over, and I'm like, what the hell? And then I started reading into it, and it's a number one sign of overwatering that. So I was like, well, what do? I have these chard that are really struggling, but everything else is taken off. Like, screw the chard. You know what I mean? So I just keep trimming it back and hoping that like one day it'll come back. But it's been, fall garden for me has always been a challenge because of the heat. And then, in the heartbreak zone, we'll go from summer to sometimes we can even almost technically skip a fall, I think we consider it fall, but temperature wise, it can go real fast. So it's always me managing that situation.
I don't know if I change this every time I say it, but this is like, I'm going to say 18, 19, 20. So this is like maybe the 4th year I've tried a fall garden. And for the most part, this is the first year outside of like some lettuce. I did do some lettuce and a couple of like leafy greens last year. So maybe this is the 2nd year that I've actually planted things for fall that are doing well in the garden. Previous years, I've had things that have been planted earlier in the season that also like the fall temps, and probably more so like the fall temps, that continue to do well, because that's a difference. Right? Something that I planted in the summer that's still living. Chard is a great example of that for me. It's very different than something that I tried to get the timing right for the fall season.
Yeah.
So this year I actually have both, which is super duper cool.
That is cool. So your garden, is it safe to say that your fall garden is bigger than previous years, or?
Yes.
Because you're one that holds on to summer crops as long as possible, right?
Like I don't tomatoes. Like your tone.
Well, oh, yeah, it literally I just got scared instantly.
Yeah,
I was like, what do I do?
I don't normally see it, but I saw it in your face. There was a stare down that I was giving you.
I was like, oh shit.
It's I'm okay with being called on my shit, and I know that's not what you were doing, but it felt that because, let me tell you, it felt like that because I have been walking around the garden over the last week, and this is a part of observation, it's a part of continued learning, right? And really looking and saying, some of the spaces that I still have filled with summer crops, and that whole balance of how much more am I going to get? You could probably hear this same bit of conversation in previous episodes. But I look and say, like, this is the difference. There are things that I planted where I had some pretty good open space, and then some of my summer plants overshadowed what I had planted for fall.
Right.
And so it's like these summer plants that are going on their way out basically have bogarted their way, and then they've stunted the growth for my true fall vegetables. So if they hadn't been there at all, great example. I have it's maybe 6 feet long and about 1.5 feet wide. So a super duper narrow bed. It's in the front yard garden. And I had 2 squash plants there. And then I sowed some seeds for mustards. And I've gotten 2 squash off of those 2 plants, period. 2 squash. And then powdery mildew affected it, and I ended up ultimately pulling it, but I pulled it so late where it's been hard to get something else sowed there, to fill that space, right? And so that's a great example. And it's the continued squash trouble too, but that's a great example of, I'm still working through that timing. This is only what? Oh shit, I'm past year 3. I'm supposed to have this figured out by now. Yeah,
you are. You're delayed.
No. It takes me 3 years to try it. So I'm just generally, I'm
so
past that
you've got another
point.
3 years to, let's air quote, master it. How's that? We're going to give you a 6-year leeway.
Okay, because I was going to say that
Is
perhaps
that good?
I was thinking that maybe I'm just in year 3 of failing at this. So it could be that.
No, we're going to give you a 6-year leeway from inception in the mind all the way to beginning the mastering phase of it. So that's plenty of leeway, I think.
Yeah, but that still makes this year 6 because I started it at least 3 years ago. But okay, I'll take the win. I still have more years to be successful at this.
Well, look, if you're not successful at it and it's your 6th year, then just you fucked up, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah, that's kind of how I was feeling, and I was hoping that maybe you'd correct me. But thanks for the
give you a
confirmation.
7th year if you want. I mean,
Yeah, I like 7. 7's actually my lucky number.
7's a good number. Okay, 7 years.
Wait.
You have 7 years.
Hold on, wait. Oh, wait, I can't find the note. Where's the note that I just wrote from the question of the day?
There it is. That's why you have a notebook.
Look, I dropped the whole note. Oh, sorry. I dropped the notepad on the floor. I know I can do better. Hashtag
You can.
it.
There you go. You can do better.
Clearly, when you don't have my back and I can't count on you, there's a listener out there that fills in the gap.
I always got your back, Batavia. You know that.
The bell rang all over what you just said. We're moving on.
It doesn't matter. So no, there's some summer crops that I hold on to as well. I had a failure of a watermelon crop this year, and then I'd say about a month ago I was walking around and I was like, look at there, I got a little watermelon. So I kept trying to hold it, but it's just not enough sun now.
Yeah.
Until the leaves fall off my trees. I know I've said it on YouTube about 1,000 times, but I'm literally like, okay, the leaves need to fall. The leaves need to fall for multiple reasons. One, I want to beef up my compost pile, but 2, I want the sun to come in.
Yeah.
And, the other day I was cutting the grass and I just mowed right over. I was like, whatever, I'm over it. It's not going to grow. It's just a waste of time. So, and I've identified some other issues inside of my wild garden, and I'm going to, if I can pool the money together, I'm going to make that change. So it's going to stay a wild garden, but I'm going to make it a raised bed and bring in some good soil and just put it in there because I have compaction issues. I have drainage issues. I have nutrient issues, and I have temperament issues that I just can't deal with it anymore. It's pissing me off. So I'm just like, you know what? I know what to do. I know how to fix it, and I'm going to move on. So my plan is to fill it and use it like it's supposed, like a raised bed. What is that? Oh,
that's the note that says, I know I can do better. Man, apply it again. So remind me to talk sweet potatoes.
Okay, well, why don't you talk sweet potatoes?
Oh, thanks for reminding me.
Okay, you're welcome.
So great news. I'm not going to bury the lead. I harvested my sweet potatoes, and I'm very, very pleased with the harvest. And I'm absolutely going to year 3 next year, right? So they're making the cut.
What was the poundage?
That doesn't matter. Let's rephrase. I'm going to tell you the poundage, but let's rephrase the way that we evaluate success. All right. So I studied Young Ben's video for sweet potatoes, so check it out on the Backyard Gardens YouTube channel. And I was like, an archaeologist or something. Is that the one that, studies the bones? And so I was brushing away the soil, and that lasted for what seems like hours. Yeah. And then when I finally got down to it, I'm just like, damn it. And I pulled and broke a couple. But anyway, so I have about 9 pounds of sweet potatoes. And this is the key. It is in a 36-inch round raised bed. And that's the raised bed that I had that huge sunflower in. So within that 36-inch round raised bed, I'd say about 2/3 of it was where I planted sweet potatoes, and the other piece of it was that sunflower. And so what it allowed me to do is, one, see, okay, absolutely there was more growth here than there was in only the raised bed or the grow bags last year. My grow bag, I had one single grow bag this year, and it produced shit, you know. Well, I mean, it produced potatoes,
I'm starting
but
to
not many
see
of
a
them.
pattern with grow bags.
No. I'll come back to that at some point later. But anywho, it allowed me to see, based on this size, this is what it produced. Right. And so I could either be really, really happy with that kind of production next year, or I could dedicate more space to it. But I have more of the formula now. And I know it seems like it's pretty logical, but I mean, it absolutely is. Slips equal potatoes equal space.
I like when you did that. I have more of the formula, and you were like waving
I thought
your
you were
hand
telling
around.
me to speed this story up, right?
No.
Yeah, I am being very animated for those that can't see me. Well, I guess you're the only one that can see me. So anywho, when you mentioned compacted, so that soil was actually, as I was pulling it up, we had a lot of rain. Remember, I was trying to wait. So I waited about a week after our last bout of rain, and the soil wasn't super duper wet, which is a good thing. But I did observe that it was a bit more compacted than probably those sweet potatoes wanted. So I had some that were about half of them were nice size. They weren't like your date night sweet potatoes. And some of them were smaller. And so I was thinking about, as I was, brushing soil away, I was thinking about ways to make sure that I have a bit more loose soil when I plant them next year. Super duper pleased. Sweet potatoes make the cut. White potatoes are still to be determined. Actually, they made the cut too, because I made some executive decisions.
I'm glad you brought up loose soil, because last year I planted in the wild garden the sweet potatoes like I wanted to, like it was designed for. And I didn't have a great harvest. And I've noticed every time I go out there, the soil is very hard to get my hands in. And so I've noticed that every single time I go out there, and I'm like, well, what the hell? You know what I mean? So it just leads me to believe that when you said that, it kind of triggered in my mind, which I had been thinking about as well. But I was like, maybe that's really been an issue, because I plant them in this damn bed. And you saw what I got this year. I mean, I'm thrilled to death. You can't tell me nothing. Like, I'm a sweet potato farmer, son. Like, I'm proud.
What was your poundage? I really don't care, but it seems fair to ask.
I think we got 35 pounds
that's
out of it. So we were very happy with that. But, the soil, like, I can stick my hand all the way down to the bottom and scoop it up with that with no issue. My other one, I'm like, and I've turned it and added to it. And I just, it comes to a point where I'm like, all right, I'm throwing in the towel. Like, I think it's just time for me to make the step. But at the same time, I have to do a cost analysis as well, because it might be cheaper for me just to get a damn tiller and go in there and till the hell out of it. And I know I have a tiller available to me I can borrow, but I really don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I haven't figured out the how. I really believe that this is the combination of, there are a couple of other spots that were potential spots for sweet potatoes this year. Right. And so I'm going to take a look at what that soil looks like compared to the soil that I'm actually planting in. I have spots in my garden where the soil is heavier, if you will, than others. Like I know what those are. And if I don't know, I'm reminded once I get to amending the beds. But you just don't know like how heavy is too heavy.
This is I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I totally cut you off. Rude as hell.
No, that's okay. I was talking to some folks at work, and I commented about how sometimes I'm talking like straight off the top of my head, and my thoughts trail off, and it's hard to tell that it's the end of my sentence.
Yeah. Well, I guess if you were doing that, then I'll go ahead.
Yeah.
So this is the third year for the wild garden, and I knew the first year was going to be rough. The second year was tough. And the third year, now this year, I'm kind of like, you know what? Everything that I'm getting out of my garden, my main 4 or now 5 beds are really supporting me. Like, I haven't even untapped the potential inside of those beds. And it's frustrated me this year because I'm like, I keep having stuff grow, and I'm like, it's growing, but it's just not doing it. And, you know, I got really sandy soil. And I just feel like I'm it's a constant, and it's a really big deal for me to say that I'm thinking very seriously about making it raised bed, and I can't I'll end up losing space if I make it a raised bed.
Yeah.
Because I can't have it so big in a raised bed.
Yeah.
Because I can't get in it to work. So, but when I say that, I'm thinking out my problem on air for everybody to hear. So beware of that. But if I take away that space, I'm still not losing anything because I'm not really getting as good of a harvest out of my big space. So if I have a quality smaller space, then I will actually be getting more, right?
Yep.
Does that make sense?
It does, because I was looking at recently the front yard garden. So
you look at the front yard garden every time we talk.
Yeah, but
I see a profile of you like, I don't even know what the front of your face looks like. I just know what the side of your face looks like.
I know. I'm trying to soak it all up for all the way up until the point where it doesn't look like that anymore.
Yeah.
And then they're just dreams of what will be, you know. But, you know, it's very designed, if you will, right? And so I don't think I thought about this. People have asked me about it, but I really didn't think much of it. No one's asked me about it that I can remember. I've seen people comment on, why would you build a structure? Why are you guys putting wood around dirt, right? We may have even talked about this before here. And I would have needed to bring in some soil based on, especially if I wanted to have success in the first year or two when I dug up the front yard garden. So soil would have needed to be brought in, but I didn't need to build anything out really. Right. And so there are a couple of reasons. There was aesthetically, I wanted it to look nice based on it being the front yard garden. Not that you have to have something super pretty in the front yard, but I wanted something that, you know, my neighbors couldn't contest. It's beautiful. You love it. And it also is higher, right? So while animals can get to it, it's a little bit more challenging. But my point when bringing it up all the way around is I was thinking about how much more space I could have gotten if I didn't build these structures, how much more planting space, right? And it was maybe more than even just a moment I was thinking about it, right? I'm not changing it in the near future, but there is that moment of this could be a more efficient space if I would have planned it differently.
Right.
All in all, I'm super duper happy with it. But I that's the reason why I hear exactly what you're saying, because I have had these thoughts recently. I'm on the other side of it, though. You're thinking about doing it. I've done it. Now I'm thinking about what if I didn't do it.
Yeah. And I think, me doing, because this is the first time I've ever done an in-ground garden myself. And then, in my area where it's so sandy, I mean, the water, I have my crops out there and they're wilting constantly because the water is it just goes right through.
Yeah.
So, but if I build the raised, and this is in my mind, an argument for having a raised bed is you can do the raised bed, add your soil in, and you're good. You basically, what you're working with, what it is. So, and I think, for me, it'll break down into an efficiency of my compost usage and knowing what to use and stuff like that. So, and I know that if I build that bed, I know what it will produce. I know it will produce next year, and it will be, my wife will probably kill me because we already get so much out of 5 beds. And then if I add another 4 beds in that are going to produce like that, she's going to be like, what the hell are you doing? We don't have time for this. So
yeah. Well,
okay, I'm doing it. Anything to make the wife mad.
She doesn't listen to every episode, so she won't hear that I was on the other side of this.
She's not allowed to listen to any episode because I want her to be your friend.
Okay, yeah, because I don't want to be associated with that decision. But it's super interesting because a part of the reason why I said I'm using the garden as kind of outdoor storage is because I've been struggling with time now, right? So I could have clearly have gotten so much food off of especially the summer crops, and pull those plants if I wanted to, leave them if I didn't want to pull them or whatever have you. And it really kind of, again, and I'm going to talk about it every time I want to talk about it, right? That's not to you. That's kind of to myself as I'm trying to self-edit. I keep on thinking about...
That's weird that you did that, but that's okay. I support it.
Yeah, that I actually said it out loud. That's one more of my thoughts that really probably should have stayed in my head. But I am like going through and thinking about what's most useful to me in my garden. You know, the food that I'm growing. What's most useful? What's most manageable? Right? You know. So again, a part of this is for now eating, and a part of this is for eating later. What's easier for storage? Right? Storage and preservation. I didn't pull my roots up. I planned on doing it on Saturday before the rain, and I didn't do it because I wasn't prepared to store all of the roots. And I mean, I don't have like 50 pounds of roots or anything, but I have enough to be able to figure out, all right, what are you going to eat fresh this week? What are you going to put in the bin? And I didn't have time between Saturday afternoon and the end of Saturday to be able to figure that piece out. So what it led me to was really, as I consider again, because we're always revising, right? My next year plan. Maybe it isn't the end of the world that I got like 20 some pounds of potatoes, white potatoes. Maybe it isn't the end of the world that I got 10 pounds of sweet potatoes. If I would have had 10 more pounds, we'd have had sweet potato pies. Now I'm not going to use those for sweet potato pies because I want to enjoy the harvest a little bit longer.
Yeah. You know what? Before we get off the subject of sweet potatoes, I do want to say that mine are, as of the recording of this, the day's date is 10/26. If you go back and you look at my YouTube channel, where I said that, hey, I was curing potatoes, I'm just now stopping today curing them. So today is the last. So that's how long that I cured them. So if anybody has any questions about that, that's how you can find out, because I left them out there as long as I could because I really wanted to get them nice and sweet and creamy. So when I cook them, they just bubble over. And my son, we cooked one the other day and it was effing delicious. Wow. And he was like, Daddy. I was like, yes, son. He was like, eat the sweet potato like the man in the Kung Fu movie. And I was like, okay, because that's how I eat them. I just eat them, like pick them up and bite them whole. It doesn't, you know. And he was like, that's what I'm talking about. That's what did he say? That's the Toad style. And I was like, whatever. You know, he's 7, so he says whatever comes to his mind. He's got zero filter.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I'm uncomfortable about how you make comparisons to David and I, either directly or indirectly. Because what you just described, what he was saying, what comes to his mind is exactly what I've been saying for the last 30 minutes about me.
Well, I can't really say anything to that, but yeah.
I actually have been trying to channel my childhood a little bit more, so there we are. But in all seriousness, I do... sweet potato pies will be made this month in November, right? And I know it sounds like, wait a minute, you're going to buy sweet potatoes to make sweet potato pies. If you make sweet potato pies, you know, you add a lot of things to it. Sugar, milk, butter, you know, other seasonings. And I really want to be able to enjoy the pureness of the sweet potatoes from my garden. And I don't have enough to be able to do both. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. If you're going to add all that bullshit to it, you might as well use the stuff from the store. That was the quick way of saying it, but your way was very poetic, and I liked it.
Yeah, I know. I felt like I'm a special kind of special. And then you started talking about the bullshit that I'm adding to it, which I mean, at the end of the day, that's what I'm trying to say, too. If I'm not going to be able to taste the sweet potatoes in the sweet potato pie,
then you're done.
Yeah, I wanted to be from the store in that case.
Yeah, I've... You know, and when I do the white potatoes this year, so I have to plant my white potatoes in February. So if I take and I make those raised beds beforehand, it's going to be super easy to plant them and grow them and just pile the dirt back on. So I'm kind of now I'm really excited about doing it.
Wait, so are you thinking about getting soil delivered, dirt delivered this year, or are you thinking about getting it delivered early next year?
No, before February. Okay. I'll do. I usually do that kind of stuff in January, just because it fills my time, and it gives me everything is usually cleared out at that point, so I got like a clean slate and I can look at it. So it's really worth it for me to just go ahead and do it then.
And your soil, the existing soil, isn't frozen at that point, right?
No, our soil doesn't. I mean, it freezes and thaws, but it doesn't stay frozen.
Yeah. That was just one more opportunity for me to highlight the difference of our gardens, and more so, oh, woe is me, the struggle of my, frozen solid dirt by January. But okay,
I mean, I remember when I lived in New England, it was like there was no dirt. You were just, it was gone. you know, come December, and that was it. You didn't see it. And if you did see it, that bitch was hard.
Solid.
So, yeah.
Solid as a rock. Did you not pick up on the song? Let me finish. Good night.
Look, we can't do that. We don't have the IP for that. So.
Oh, maybe a good point. But wait, there's no one that would really hear that version and then connect it to
Who
the
knows?
original version.
They might be like, that is a dead ringer. No, I do want to give an update on my kale. So I called Batavia a couple days ago, and I said, look, I've been growing curly kale for, I think it was my 5th year this spring growing curly kale. And I said, I'm done. And I think I even said it on here. And you talked me into Tuscana, dinosaur
Tuscan.
kale, Tuscan kale, dinosaur kale, and what was the other one?
Lacinato kale, all of that stuff.
Lacinato.
If you see any of those names, get
It's
it.
all the same.
Yep.
It's all the same, right? So,
Yeah,
anyways,
yeah, as
I
far as I
harvested it. I'm back in the kale game. Like, I'm good. Like, that curly kale, I do not ever want to see that shit again. I'm all set. But this stuff, yes, I'm in. And I'm just now, like, it's crazy. As soon as the temperatures broke, like, it's been in my garden for a while, and I hadn't harvested it. As soon as the temperatures broke, they quadrupled in size in, like, a week. It was crazy. Like, they were like, I'm happy. This is what I want. And they just exploded. So,
Yeah.
if I can only get the ones in the greenhouse to do the same thing, we'll be good.
I have this saying, and I've said this before because I remember you telling me what it was, and I still can't remember what it was, but imitation crab meat and then actual crab meat, they're so different that
Yeah.
it shouldn't even be called imitation crab meat. And so these kale varieties are just so different, where I struggle with that they're both called kale. There are a bunch of other varieties out there too, but they are wholly different. So I'm glad that you like the Lacinato, Tuscan, and whatever the other name is that with dinosaur kale.
Yeah. I told David it was dinosaur because it makes it cooler and he'll eat it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was impressed and I was happy with it, and it now has a place in my garden. You know, this is the year of comeback kids. There's been a number of vegetables that I'm like, you're on the cutting block.
Yeah.
And then they come back, bang, you know. So I was just out there earlier and I noticed that my radishes, another comeback kid, they're filling up. They're getting good. I do have one variety of radish that I was not overly impressed with, but that's for a different day.
Yeah.
That was the red meat radishes I was telling you about. Remember we talked about that?
Watermelon.
Yeah, watermelon. Yeah, it was boo-boo. So
Yeah, I may have let my radishes go a little. It's such a bad habit of mine. Like, I harvest a lot of overgrown food, but it goes back to my previous comments, right? Like, I have harvested some radishes right at 25 days. And I mean, let's just be realistic. There's only so much flavor in a radish, but the plant itself is very different at 25 days than it is at 50 days. And so, but it's a part of the learning experience. I know now in my head, it's filed away when I prefer to harvest, insert that vegetable. And that part, like, that excites me. I love being able to, recognize that for myself. What I prefer in the garden, because it's sometimes we say, like, when someone asks when to harvest a thing, we kind of reference, all right, what does it look like the size in the store, right? And in some cases that's spot on, but in other cases, like, we know the whole chain and how things are harvested before their time. So you really want to be able to determine for yourself, like, when do you like that vegetable?
Well, and the thing is too that's so important is, like, well, I mean, you basically said you're growing it to your flavor profile. So there's some stuff that you grow that you're supposed to grow immature. Maybe when you get this kohlrabi that's the size of a softball, you might be like, yeah, this is way better. I like this more. And then you'll know, and it's so, I think that's one of the cool things about it is you're deciding when your food is ready and it meets your flavor profile.
Yep.
Like, if you want a spicy radish, let it get spicy and you'll have a spicy radish.
I am speaking of, like, wholly different kale, Russian kale, which I comment around about because it's I comment a lot about it because it's very prolific. And I realized this year, I know I've grown it a bunch of years. I realized this year I really prefer it younger. And that's not my story. I generally like kind of those kind of hardier greens. I like them once they've gotten a bigger size and all of that. But Russian kale, I'm convinced now, I've had it, you know, when it's much younger, and I've had it when the leaves are much larger. So younger would be, you know, I don't know, this, whatever you would see like baby spinach at, maybe a little bit bigger than that. And then full size for me is probably the size of anyone's hand, right? Besides a kid, right? So it's the size of any adult's hand or larger, right? And I'm pretty comfortable with saying I don't like it once it's that. Well, I won't say I prefer it. Let's say it that way. When it's a bit younger. Right. So, I mean, but you kind of have to have it both ways to know that, right?
Yeah.
Now, the last thing I wanted to say about that, because I keep on forgetting, is one of the joys in now committing to a fall garden, committing to a spring garden, recommitting to a summer garden, is some of these vegetables I'm able to taste at different times, and specifically when there's different weather impacts.
Yeah.
Right. So that... it brings me joy because it just reminds you of nature and how, you know, this whole thing is bigger than us, right? Let me go there for a minute. And like, it's hard to get tired of things when quite literally they will taste different. Same vegetable can taste different. Now, I ain't talking about those sweet collards that folks be talking about. I ain't talking about that, you know. But
what sweet collards? Never seen them.
Yeah, I'm not buying that.
We have to figure out a way to test it. I need to test it. Yeah, I got collards. I can start eating them now, but then I won't remember the flavor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. And then even if you were to like freeze them, it's still like that's wholly changed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's not the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how to do it. I need to figure it out because the whole sweet collard thing bothers me. Now, I did want to go back to the curly kale for a second.
Real quick, I heard a breakdown, like a scientific breakdown down on the why, which seemed logical, but I can't remember it exactly. So we'll come back to that one day later.
Yeah, one day we'll have a whole episode about cold and sweet greens or something stupid.
No.
It sounds like something that would be fun. No. It'd be fun to get on there and just talk crap about it the whole time.
Nope, not fun. Not signing on to it. But, I mean, because we do give Leonard a vote, so I mean, I could be outvoted here.
You could be. We'll see. Leonard's
curly
like,
kale.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Curly kale. So I've you know, for years when I grew it, I was like, man, my kale's always small. My kale's always small. And it turns out I was growing dwarf curly kale all these years. And then I grew this kale, and like my garden looks fuller, and it has the visual appeal that I want this year. Like visually, all the radishes, which, you know, I've got basically a radish farm going on, and all of the, you know, the lettuce is in a group, and the kales are all lined up in the back, and it's got all the textures, and they're all full, and it's like the first year in 10 years that I've like actually had like one of my beds looks like it's supposed to. You know what I mean? Like in my head, when I think of a healthy garden, I actually have that look. So it makes me very pleased. Now, on the other hand, are you tearing up?
Keep on talking. Go ahead. I'm fine.
So on the other hand, on one of my other beds, my broccoli, it grew weird and got tortured looking, but it's all... It's one of those things where like everything is just really filling in very nicely. And I don't know what happened to make it. Well, I do know what happened. I kind of gave it a lot of fertilizer and redid the soil and added compost and mulch and everything else. But as I go through and I look at it, I'm just like, wow, it really impresses me. I mean, honestly, I impressed myself this year because I'm like, I did exactly what I wanted to do in the heat. And everything is looking, if it doesn't taste good, damn it, at least it looks good. And that makes me happy because it's been, you know, with that curly kale shit, like I always see everybody else's kale and I'm like, why hasn't mine looked like that? You know, because it really fills in your garden and it gets so big. And so now that I have it, I'm like, all right, I'm good. You know, I'm happy. Write it down, everybody. Ben's happy. Can't be quiet. You got to talk.
No, man.
Just let it go.
First off, you want like them to hear the frog in my throat, right? Second, you absolutely know when you push the buttons. And third, there are things, so I'm very comfortable with, the way that I'm able to express myself. And there are not many times where I don't have the words. Sometimes I have many more words. But then there are moments like just now when you describe something that's been in my head and either I haven't been able to figure out how to articulate it, or maybe I've just not been comfortable because it sounds a certain way. But the fullness that you were talking about of the garden, and kind of you have this in your mind of what you want this to look like, because we are first and foremost growing food, period, right?
Yeah.
And we are also trying to achieve a certain thing, and that fluctuates. It can be, a certain look, a certain feel, and you hit the nail on the head when it came to my fall garden. It's been funny because at this time of year, things are so died out normally in my garden. And there's a part of like literally darkness that comes with that, right? It washes over me. I fight it. And every year I want to plant flowers because I believe that will like refresh me in my garden. And I just never get around to it. Right. And so basically at this time I'm looking at most times, kind of dead vines. And then it's like, let's make the whole trip to clear the space because that's what I choose to do at the end of the season. But this year it's been so different. And so that fullness, that life, right? Because there's still energy. I talked about tomatoes kind of being stalled, but those are tomatoes, right? Think about all the other things, my collards, the spinach and the radishes. Like there's still such an opportunity to see new life. And then there's that opportunity, especially for these fall vegetables, to go from it's curly kale. I know how you feel about that, but it's the same idea of that fullness. Started with these transplants, and like in 30 days, you kind of see this thing kind of bustling, you know, and it brings me great joy. I am happy too. So write it down.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just something that I've been striving for years, and I feel like I always missed the mark somehow, and it's like it all fell into place.
Yeah.
And it was like everything was planted at the right times. The research kind of paid off. Yeah. Talking on here for 158,000 hours this year paid off. It's just like all of it kind of all came together.
Yeah.
And when I stood back and looked at it, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Who cares about pathways?
Yeah.
It's all about this.
Yeah, man. I'm happy for you too. Yeah.
So it's, and it's funny too, because it's just trying new varieties. I've tried a lot more varieties this year and stepped out of my bounds. Or in the past couple of years, I've tried different varieties of different things, and some things did well, some things didn't. And, some things are going away and some things aren't. And, the kale was a good thing because I was like, I'm not ready to cut off like one of the major producers for winter, especially for me. Like I can grow kale all winter almost, mostly. So to cut it out completely would kind of hurt the production and, the value of the garden for the winter. And so to find something that has a different variety, that has a different texture, a different growth pattern, a different height, a different color, and honestly a different flavor is amazing, even though it's still a kale.
Yeah, this is normally, so I'll let you guys in on something. This is normally a subject matter that I would discuss with young Ben, like offline, right? And I already know, I already hear you in my head. And so because I already know how the conversation is going to go, I'm just going to share it on air here. There was, I was thinking about the sweet potatoes, and then I was thinking about some of the other vegetables, and I kind of felt, this is me in my own head, I was starting to feel kind of wishy-washy. And I was thinking about like, I'm going to go back because I feel like I don't want to continue to give like a contradicting message, right? But then I would say to myself, sometimes these episodes are almost like a diary, a garden diary, right? And they're capturing the feeling in the moment, right? Yeah. And so as I was sitting and saying, I'd already said, depending on what happens with my sweet potatoes, right? But then immediately I thought, a part of this is adventure, so to speak, for me. And maybe that's not the right word that I want to use right now. Discovery. Maybe that's a bit better and more descriptive. And so a part of that, you have to be able to try new things, try things in different places, try things in different times. And I, at that time, gave myself a pass with saying, all right, yeah, you're absolutely going to give year 3 for sweet potatoes. I'd already decided it before I dug them up for sweet potatoes. And when I dug up the sweet potatoes, I decided we're going to give white potatoes one more year, right? We're going to give them year 3. And the voice in my head, which was yours, was, it's your garden. Do what the fuck you want. You know what I'm saying? Don't worry about sounding wishy-washy or being wishy-washy. So I appreciate that conversation that we just had. Thank you.
Yeah, well, and I mean, you're welcome. And I want you to hear this. And I want every single person listening to hear this. This isn't politics. You're allowed to change your mind. And yeah, you might be flip-flopping, but that's okay because it's a thought process and we're all going through it. And as we see things, we are allowed to be indecisive because it's a big decision to tie up a bed for 100+ days for something that you don't know. Like, it is okay to flip-flop, and it is okay for you and I to come on here for all these people to hear us flip-flop back and forth. Like, I am not apologizing for it at all because it's my garden and I don't know half the time what I want to put in. Like, I make a plan, but I flip-flop out of that plan constantly. Like, nobody sees how many times I have my plan made and I go back and I change it or I delete it and start over, or, you know, I'm like, oh, wait, let me add this other bed in here that I'm going to build. And, you know, it's just, everything gets kind of crazy. So, you know, it drives me crazy when people are like, well, that person flip-flops. I'm like, well, no, they're just kind of educating themselves and you're allowed to change your mind. Like, in 10 years from now, it's a possibility. It's not saying it's going to happen, but Tavia, so don't freak out and don't yell at me when I say this. We might sit on this show because, you know, in 10 years, we're going to have 58,000 episodes. And you might say, you know what? I'm not growing tomatoes anymore. I'm done. And just total flip-flop. And that's okay. I knew you were going to do that. Yeah, I knew it.
I'm sorry. I couldn't make out those words.
You heard me. But I mean, and that's okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think, just one more comment around that for me. And it was the moment of balance. So there are actually 2 more comments. One is the garden can absolutely elicit emotions, right?
Yes.
Right. Well, even taking a step back further, food absolutely does that, right? So the garden elicits emotions. And so you can actually probably plot out the timing of things, right? Feeling a certain way about a certain thing at a certain time in the growing season. And then there's this, you know, much more thankfulness, much more gratefulness as this thing winds down. I don't even know if I want to go to my second point because I don't know if I can hold it together enough.
Do it. You told everybody. You have to.
And that's fair. And I'm so thankful because without spending this time actually talking about, hearing about your garden, hearing about other people's gardens, talking about my own, sometimes we're slower to come to the realization, right?
Yes.
So there's that. But then there's also this balance of, as we came out of the August challenge, like feeling the need to be as productive as possible and as diverse as possible. And there still is that. That's still a overarching theme and focus point for me. But it also is really valuing the thing that you're getting from that garden. So I still have white potatoes in my cabinet right now. When I harvest those in August, right? So we're closing out of October. And so it's not like I'm eating 10 pounds of white potatoes a week or something, you know? So I still have white potatoes to last me. And while I am going to change some things when I grow there, it really is like, especially for a small grower like I am, take the win, right? Like, what if I only grew in that 36-inch space for sweet potatoes? Like, that's a nice harvest to be able to eat a couple of sweet potatoes, you know, a night a week for the next several weeks, you know, next couple of months even. And look at how little that I gave up, if you will, for my garden space and my garden design, right? Now, I'm going to go much bigger next year because that's how I roll. But, you know,
but there's always an option, and it's good to think that way. And you might change your mind by then too.
Absolutely.
You might go back and forth and be like, you know what, I'm going to stick it back in a grow bag, or I'm going to have it climb up my trellis, or something, you know, who knows? But there's all kinds of options. So, and for the record, I don't eat sweet potato leaves. So everybody, please stop telling me to eat my sweet potato leaves. Like, I don't like it and I don't want to do it. So just stop suggesting it to me, please. Like, I love you guys and I appreciate your input, but like, I got so many people saying like, eat the sweet potato leaves. I don't want to. Okay. Thank you.
I do too, and please continue to tell me. So this is when you have to realize who's Batavia. So if you're typing to the Backyard Gardens TV on Instagram, just put my name there.
Yeah.
I need to be reminded to eat the sweet potato leaves. I forget until they're at the point where they're really not edible. Once they've turned. I did just quickly want to say I'm actually going further with grow bags. I think it's absolutely all about the thing you grow in them. So stay tuned for that next year. I mentioned I'll come back around to that. So that's all I'll say about that.
So we have an option. I'm going to give you an option live on the air. We can continue this conversation because I'm thoroughly into it and make this a 2-part series, or I can go straight to the recipe of the day. Your choice. Tick, tock.
Go to the recipe of the day. But we're going to come back to this conversation. I feel like I'm dehydrated. I feel like I really need to do a big blow of my nose, and we need to do that.
Okay. So we'll be right back, everybody, with the recipe of the day featuring me, the recipe of the day. A lot of y'all asked, how can you help support the Backyard Gardens podcast? Well, we have been busy, and we have created a t-shirt line just for the gardener.
To visit our shop, go to the link in the show notes and check out the t-shirts and other goodies we have.
Now, these are super special t-shirts designed just for the gardener, so enjoy. Thank you for supporting the Backyard Gardens podcast, and we'll see you guys after the harvest. Okay, so I actually just kind of started cooking some stuff last night, and it turned out really good. And I started off saying this is going to be a cowboy burrito. So we took and I chopped up an onion, I water sauteed it, and then I sauteed mushrooms with that, give it a little bit of salt and pepper, bada bing, bada boom. Then I took my kohlrabi and I sliced it into about, I sliced it pretty thin because it was going to give a crunchy flavor. Mm-hmm. And so then I added that in as well. Once everything was softening up, I added that in, added a little bit of water to it just to kind of give it a quick steam. Then I added my oil, let the oil heat up in the pan, and I used fake chicken strips. Mm-hmm. You can use chicken, whatever you want to use. My goal, I thought that I had some plant-based beef chunks that I was going to put in, but I did not, so I used chicken strips. But do note that I would have used beef chunks, mm-hmm. and I cooked those in there. I browned them. I put a little bit of smoked paprika in it. If you don't have smoked, I just use regular paprika, and then a little bit of garlic. I really was thinking in my mind when I made this that I was a cowboy, so it's super simple. I put salt and pepper on it, cooked it, and then I added a couple, probably like a quarter teaspoon of liquid smoke because I'm not cooking on an open fire, but I wanted that flavor. Mm-hmm. And I put in there. And then at this point, you can do a number of things. Okay, you can add any kind of vegetable you want. I could not physically put my hands on my peas I harvested from my garden, so I could not get them in. But I was able to put about 5 handfuls of spinach in, cook it down. I would have used my kale if I would have gone out and gotten it, but I did not. Cook that down. Then I put barbecue sauce in it. And to be specific, well, they don't pay me, so you can use whatever barbecue sauce you want. But I use a sugar-free barbecue sauce. And then I took a cheddar cheese and put that on top and let that, melt. Once it melted, put it into a warm tortilla. Bam, you got a cowboy burrito made by yours truly.
I can taste it.
You can?
I can.
It was good. It was pretty good, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the problem was the spinach came out hot as fire. So, but the whole family ate it, and with the chicken, it was good. But I would have liked to really have used beef chunks, plant-based beef chunks. That is, don't confuse yourselves, people. Yeah,
nicely done. I'm absolutely going to use both of my kohlrabi and taste test it with that recipe.
Are you?
No,
I don't feel
I'm
like
not.
it would be a good one. Yeah.
No,
and so the kohlrabi definitely gave a little crunch, so you want to cut it thin. Be very aware. And since we're on the subject of kohlrabi, you cut the leaves off, And then what I did is I just kind of cut it into a square. So I cut all of the outside skin off of it. I was trying to be real quick. And then I cut it in half, slice, and then cut the slices in half and put that in. And it gave it a good little a rooty flavor, I would say, earthy flavor. So
yeah, but that crispness also puts me in the mind of like potatoes. Like how you,
that was the idea.
Yeah, you didn't deep fry it, which, I wouldn't expect you to have with this recipe. But there is some, anytime you're going to wrap a shell around something, I'm about a taco or a burrito with everything. Yeah. And it just reminded me to use some of my potato harvest for that purpose.
Well, if I was on the range, I would have potatoes in my bag, but I'm not on the range. And you know what? I'm a different kind of cowboy. I'm wanted dead or alive, and I got a kohlrabi on my saddle, so holla back.
Is this the feeling you have when I go super corny? Like, when I just
it
felt...
makes you, it's cringy, yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it makes you like almost throw up in your mouth a little bit. Yeah, that's
uncomfortable. Like you want to just basically edit that part out because you're embarrassed that other people will hear your friends speaking that way. Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're like embarrassed for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to own it. You got to own it. You got to be weird like that. Yeah, you got to be weird like that. So, what was your judgment call on this? Are we ending it or are we continuing it?
No, I feel like I need to like
you need to
hydrate.
Decompress? Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
Yeah. So let's just do this. As you guys can see, there's a lot going on in the garden, but this conversation never, ever ends, everybody. It just keeps going and going because there's so much that we can uncover. And really, I mean, we're trying to crack the code of gardening, and damn if it ain't difficult. So
so if you made it this far, be prepared for me to have gone to get another cup of coffee and then for Ben and I to pick this conversation up, because that could very well happen. And you may hear this on another episode. So
you may.
Yeah.
But everybody, I want to know what's going on in your gardens, especially now. Like, we've seen your summer gardens, but share them with the crew. So DM us a picture at Backyard Gardens TV. We would love to see that. Use hashtag BYG podcast if you just want us to share something in our stories. But we would really like to actually post it so everybody can see it and you guys can communicate back and forth. A special shout out to all of our patrons. Without you, we cannot keep this show going. Thank you very much. And anything else that we need to tell everybody?
Make sure you're growing all the things we talked about in this last mini-sode series. Do it. Like, stop playing around. Do it, or plan to do it next year. We're depending on you.
Yep. And also, everybody, I haven't even cleared this with Batavia, so I'm going out on a limb. There is some serious talk with us about bringing the show back onto YouTube at some portion. So let us know if you would like to see our shining faces on YouTube at some point. We did it before and we didn't. It was a little early in the game, I believe. And we want to know, like, if you want to see it, let us know. And we will definitely take it into consideration. We're debating back and forth. It's been a ferocious debate, but we won't air that one right now. So
yeah, the amount of like tissue and reapplication. Oh, I don't wear makeup much, but reapplication of I don't know what. But like,
I wear makeup, so
yeah. The levels of adjustments I'd have to make to pull myself together, because I mean I'm a wreck right now. But I don't sound that way because I'm cool like that. But I'd be okay with being vulnerable and for you all to see, my watermarks on my face. Might be dry heaving, because there's an ugly cry. Like we're teetering onto that. Like with this last episode,
we haven't had that yet. We haven't had the ugly cry yet.
It was close.
I'm trying not to have that happen. So. Everybody, thank you so much for being a part of the crew. Thank you so much for being a gardener. Stay safe, be strong. Check out our mini-sode series, What You Would Grow. And until next time.
See ya.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. If you want to see what we're up to or just stay up to date on all the announcements regarding the show or anything gardening, then you can follow us on Instagram at Backyard Gardens TV
We love seeing what you guys are doing, so use hashtag BYG Podcast in your posts, and we'll be sharing your gardens with the Backyard Gardens community.
And check us out on YouTube at Backyard Gardens, where we will post this show, all of our other shows, clips, and then also some gardening tips and just gardening entertainment. And you can see us at our website at backyardgardenstv.com. But that's it for today's show. So help us as we learn to grow and grow for change. And until next time, we'll catch you guys later. We'll call this one a wrap.
Now you know why people feel like celebrating at harvest time.
All over the world, people have feasting and good times when the crops have been gathered in.